Welcome to part 2 of Journey Through Soul Healing with the Limitless Lady. I'm going to wait for a couple people to join us and then we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me on Instagram and those of you on Facebook. This is part 2, being lonely versus being alone. This is our journey through soul healing. I can't wait to jump into the content tonight. It is going to be fantastic. We're just waiting on a few people to join us. Once you get in, tell me where you're from. Give me a shout out. I cannot wait to hear from all of you tonight. It's going to be a fantastic discussion. I hope everybody is having a wonderful, wonderful Thursday. Awesome. We've got Andrew on the line. We've got Dante. Hey, Dante. Love you too, Andrew. We've got Fran. Hey, big brother. Yay. Oh my goodness. This is so awesome. We're going to have a great discussion tonight. I want to thank you all for joining in. We're just going to let a few more people get online, get settled. Go ahead and get your favorite snack, your favorite drink. All right, get some water, get some juice, get a hot cup of tea. It's raining here where I'm at, so it's a great night to be in working on our soul healing. We've got Jay online. Hi, Jay. All right, this is so fantastic. Make sure when you come online, tell me who you are, tell me where you're joining us from. Let me know if you joined in for part 1. If you're new here, welcome to the Limitless Family. This is part 2, being lonely versus being alone. We're going to have some amazing discussions on tonight. I'm going to give it about 1 more minute and then we are going to get started. Hello, Instagram family and all my Facebook friends. Hello. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. All right. Fantastic. All right. We're going to go ahead and stop the music and we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to jump right in. First of all, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining in on this soul healing journey. 2019 is truly shaping up to be a fantastic year. If you follow me on social media, on Instagram in particular, I posted a video about how we are only halfway through the first month of the year. And already I can see God moving in so many ways. He's moving in the lives of my friends, of my family. He's moving in my personal life, professional life. I have heard so many amazing testimonies about what God is doing to bless his people. And so we couldn't be happier to be on this journey. And I think now is the time. Today is the day, so that if you did not join me for part 1, make sure that you go back and watch that video. That video was about the power of forgiveness. And tonight we're jumping into part 2, being lonely versus being alone. Okay, but know that none of this would be possible if it weren't for all of you. I just want to say thank you for every share, every ad, every comment. It makes a huge difference. You all are fantastic. And I don't want you to forget our motto. This is your life, no limits. No one in society, no one out there in the world, no one at our job, no one in our home, nobody can tell you to put boundaries on what God has already has. What he already has for you. That is for you to decide, and it starts right here. It starts with healing yourself from the inside out, and that's what this journey of soul healing is truly about. We also have a new Limitless Lady feature. If you haven't already seen, go check that out. Miss Ashley Scott is our new Limitless Lady. She is really schooling us on mental health and why that's so important, particularly for women and our journey through mental health. It's a topic that definitely is taking a stage on the world scene, so it's very, very important. But if you haven't checked that out, Ashley Scott, she is a wonderful, young, vibrant woman who has a lot of insight to share. So we're really excited about that. So go and check that out. Now, before we jump into part 2, I want to recap real quick part 1, the power of forgiveness, because there were 3 big steps that I asked everyone to really reflect on and start to take those steps, particularly if you have been dealing with unforgiveness or just really struggling with the power that forgiveness can have in your life when it comes to your relationships. And I just want to recap those 3 steps real quick. The first step, of course, is making sure that you acknowledge that the incident occurred, but don't give it more life than it deserved, okay? Acknowledge that the incident occurred, but do not give it more life than it deserves. The second step is to make sure that you connect a new story with what happened to you in the past, all right? When people start to exhibit those behaviors that seem similar to things that happened in the past and you haven't forgiven them, don't connect that old story with the new people and the new relationships that are in your life, okay? And then lastly, take responsibility for your role. And that's when I talked about being a mirror person versus being a window person, okay? So as you start to really think about taking responsibility for your role and really taking control of your life, this is very mental. So those 3 steps, I hope that some of you have taken those steps. When I say we had such wonderful feedback, I heard from so many people across social media about taking those 3 steps and the power of unforgiveness. That is going to open us up. It's going to open your soul up. It's going to open your heart and open up your mind for all the amazing things that are going to happen in 2019. And like I said, we're only halfway through the month. There's still a whole half a month of blessings with your name on it. So let's go get it. Okay. Let me know. Are you ready? Everybody ready to jump into part 2? Being lonely versus being alone. If you are ready, go ahead and shout me out in the comment section and say, let's go. Let's do this. 2019 is our year. Now, loneliness. Loneliness is a huge topic. Loneliness is a huge topic because at some point in your life, whether you are a man or woman, whether you are young or old, whether you are a baby boomer, a traditionalist, whether you're a millennial, or whether you're a Generation X, you have experienced loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling that truly can take us to new depths of depression. Loneliness is a feeling that can make us feel as if we're unworthy. And loneliness is also a feeling that really takes our self-awareness and what we think about ourselves, and it can take it to new depths and really start to make us question who we are. Loneliness can make us question whose we are, and loneliness can even take us to a place where we start to say, you know, I really think that maybe I need to start thinking about, am I even supposed to be on this earth? Okay. So we really need to dig into loneliness and the difference between loneliness and the difference between being alone when we start talking about the process of soul healing. So have you ever filled your time with someone or something or an idea or a hobby or a habit that did not feed your vision? Okay, we all have. At some point in our lives, we have all filled our time with that person that we thought we were supposed to be with. And the reason we thought we were supposed to be with them because it was comfortable. We were with them because they were a time filler. We were with them because they conveniently just happened to be in that space. And so we connected ourselves with them, even though we knew that they weren't good for us. They weren't feeding our vision. They weren't enhancing our life. They weren't challenging us. They weren't making us better. But we kept that person right there in the wings because we were lonely. Or have you ever filled your time with a habit or with some type of hobby that you knew was not good for you? You knew it wasn't taking you to another level. You knew that it wasn't feeding your spirit, but you did it anyway because, again, it was a time filler. It was something to do at the time. Or have you ever really spent time with someone or invested in someone? And it could have been a family member or it could have been a friend. And again, doing that because they were there, because it just happened to be convenient to have a relationship or have a friendship with that person. Or have you ever sat in a room or gone to the movie theater or gone to a restaurant and just been physically uncomfortable because you've been alone? If you said yes, then we're definitely tonight going to shatter the status quo when it comes to loneliness and being alone. Because loneliness, again, is something that we all deal with. And when we can discover the difference between loneliness and being alone, that's when we're going to start to unlock a power within ourselves that has been within us the whole time, so that we can start to make sure that we understand and discern our own voices, our own likes, our own dislikes, and we start to become a full, complete, wonderful person that God always wanted us to be. Okay, so as we start talking tonight, we're really going to have some intimate discussions about what loneliness does to us mentally, how we can start to take the steps of building a habit of being alone, because it's a habit. You have to practice this thing. It's not natural for you to feel very comfortable being alone, but you've got to practice it. And once you practice it and it becomes a habit, you start to develop a confidence to where you are literally shining. You are literally just showing the world who you are from the inside out. And that's when you start to take control. Loneliness versus being alone. We're going to dig into the artwork of how that looks, and we're going to start to give you tips and tricks for how you're going to make sure that you're maximizing your time. Okay. So what we know is that in 2019, and again, I say that we always talk about the 21st century like it's coming. We're 19 years in, folks. Okay. This year in 2019, we are more connected as a society than we have ever been before. It is beyond the ease of a touch of a button for us to go online and book a plane ticket, and we can literally be in another country tomorrow. We can go online and connect with someone halfway across the world with social media. We can send emails. We can Google Hangout. We can Skype. We can Kick. We can Tumble. We can post. We can DM. There are all these things that we can do, and we are so connected as a society when it comes to the World Wide Web and the internet. Yet we have never been more disconnected as a society than at any other time in history. And the reason that's happening is because social media, the internet, magazines, television, and all these ways that technologically are fantastic, they are painting an image of life that is not real. Okay. Over the past 10, 15 years, what has become the go-to when it comes to entertainment on television? It's reality shows, right? It started with things like Cribs, and then we start talking about things like the Real Housewives of Atlanta and the Real Housewives of New York. And then we start talking about Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop, Toronto. I don't know. I don't watch them. But what I do know is that real people are putting their lives on the television screen, and their lives are a real mess. But what's happening? Our teenagers are tuning in. Our 20-somethings are tuning in. Our millennials are tuning in. Our baby boomers are tuning in. And people are thinking that because they have the cameras, because they have the cars, because they have the lifestyle, that's what it's like. And all these people with their six packs and their perfect hair and their yaki weave and their red bottoms, that's what they want you to see. And again, the ratings go up when there's drama. The ratings go up when people cheat. The ratings go up when we start to take articles of clothes off. And so we're starting to paint a picture of reality for all of society that is untrue. And do you know why it's depressing? Because we're watching this and we're going on social media and we get stuck in that Instagram vortex and we get stuck in that Facebook vortex, and we get stuck thinking that I have to have a six pack and I have to have this 32-inch yaki weave and I have to have the red bottoms and I have to date this guy and I have to do. And there's no way you will ever ascribe to what people are saying. That's what I celebrate. That's what I want to watch on TV. And so what happens when we start thinking I'll never attain this level of life? We start to get more and more and more and more depressed. We are more depressed as a society. The statistics are mounting against the levels of depression that are happening in the world. And sadly, and I read this yesterday, sadly, between the ages of 12 and 18, okay, so we're talking middle schoolers to high school seniors, they are 20% more depressed than they were 10 years ago. I'm going to say that again. Our youth from age 12 to 18 are 20% more depressed than they were 10 years ago. So you mean to tell me that now our youth at the age of 12 are experiencing a depression that's going to be very hard for them to unlock, very hard for them to break the cycle so that they can become not 12-year-old depressed individuals in society, but 22-year-old depressed individuals in society and 32-year-old depressed individuals in society, because depression starts right here. Loneliness starts right here. And loneliness and depression, they start to eat away at who you are. So the first thing we have to recognize is that as a country, even though we're more connected, we're more disconnected than we've ever been as a society. And it's because we're trying to live a false image of reality. And the first thing we have to do is begin to separate what is reality on TV, what is reality in entertainment, what is reality on social media, and the reality that I have to live, the reality that Naomi has to live, the reality that Dante has to live, the reality that Ryan has to live when I get up out of bed every morning and I put my feet on the floor. Last week, we talked about the difference between existing and living. And when you have loneliness in your mind, you are existing. When you have loneliness in your mind, you're going through the motions of life. And when you have loneliness in your mind, you have a mask on when you go to school, you have a mask on when you go to work, and you have a mask on when you're at the grocery store. And the mask looks like this. How you doing? I'm fine. How's your day going? It's great. Kids doing all right? They're wonderful. And inside, you are screaming. Because let me tell you what loneliness is. Loneliness is being in a room full of people and still feeling alone. Loneliness is laying beside the person you love the most in the world and still feeling alone. And let me tell you something, it starts right here. It starts with getting stuck in that Instagram vortex for an hour and you're looking at this and you're looking at that and you're saying, I can never be that, but I want to be that. So we have to break the strongholds that the enemy has had on our minds, because once we break those strongholds, he will never get the power back. And it's tough. There's a piece of you that says, but goodness, that's comfortable. I've developed the habit of being depressed. And so when you break that stronghold, you are one more step closer to your destiny. You are one more step closer to that great idea that's going to change the world. You are one more step closer to the thing you're supposed to do and the reason why God sent you onto this earth. And that was to fulfill a purpose. But you can't do that if you are locked into your mind, if you are locked into the fact that you are lonely and you know that there's no way that you can ever get out. Okay. Now, in this day and age, I really want to start talking about the fact of when you think about loneliness and being alone, we think about being single versus being in a relationship. And I really, really want to break that context. I want to break the context of being in a relationship, because when you talk about loneliness and being alone, this has so much more to do than with your relationship status on Facebook. You know, the one where you say, like, I'm married, I'm in a relationship, it's complicated. This is so much more than that. If you can learn to be alone in a room, to be alone at the grocery store, at the movie theater, at work, and still be your whole self, there is nothing that you will not be able to tackle. There's no solution. There's no problem. There's nothing that you won't be able to tackle. But it's the art of being alone. So when I talk about loneliness versus being alone, I'm not just talking about your relationship status. I'm talking about your you status. How do you feel about being with you? How do you feel about your walk through this world? And so that's what I want to talk about tonight. And I really want to start with the fact that men and women experience loneliness. Men and women can learn to be alone. And even though it's a battle for men, yes, depression is a battle for men. Yes, loneliness is a battle for men. And even though it's a battle for women, and even though it's a struggle for women, we have different battles, but it's still a battle. Let me tell you why. When men are lonely, they internalize what's happening with them, and they're not necessarily, and there's exceptions to every rule, but normally they internalize exactly what's happening to them, and you're not gonna see an outward expression of that loneliness until it's far too late. Okay. And I've experienced this myself. I have brothers. I have a whole dad. I've got uncles. I've got nephews. We've had conversations. Okay. But women, when we experience loneliness, there's an outward expression of what's happening. You can see it in our countenance, in our faces. You can see it in the way that we talk. You see it in the way that we walk. We're talking to other people about it, even though we're lonely. If there's that one person that we're close to, we're still having that conversation. And I think as limitless ladies and as limitless gentlemen, if we can start to understand the fact that all of us experience loneliness in some way or another, that all of us can learn to have this communication around loneliness, then we can learn to really help other people fight that battle, because this is spiritual. Like I said, the battle that's going on with loneliness is mental, but it looks very different for men. And I'm telling you right now, limitless lady, we need men on the battlefield with us fighting this fight. And so it's so important. It's so important, ladies, that we take the time to not look at our limitless gentlemen as our besties, but more listen to the words they are saying, because a lot of men, when they choose their words, they choose them very carefully. And again, you remember how I just said you can be laying beside your best friend, your husband, your wife, and still feel lonely? That's a real thing. We talk about the achievement gap in education. We need to talk about the communication gap. Because if you're going to be a limitless lady and you're going to unlock everything, you're going to shatter the status quo, you're going to go out there and you're going to do what it is, you have to learn to be able to tap into our limitless gentlemen, because as we need them on the battlefield. We need to understand them. We need to be able to communicate that with them. And limitless ladies, when we start to feel that loneliness and we start the comparing game, oh, well, I love the way she walks. Oh, I love the car she drives. Oh, if I only had what she had. Listen. First of all, if it's on social media, she's only showing you the best parts of her life. Okay. She's not showing you that she had an argument with Tyrone about 5 minutes before she took that perfect selfie. All right. A lot of times as women, we want to make sure that we're showing that side of us, that yes, we're nurturers. Yes, we're the ones who are the motherly types. We're the child bearers. We're all those things. But when we go into that mental vortex, we try to be strong and we try to say, I can do this and I can do this. And we start to layer those things on and something starts to slip through the cracks. We have to speak up for ourselves when it comes to that loneliness, particularly if you're in a relationship, and you have to learn to speak up for that loneliness, even if you're not in a relationship. Because what happens is, if you don't speak up for yourself as a single person, you will lose your voice when you get into a relationship. You will lose your voice when you get into a friendship. You will lose your voice when you get that great job that God has unlocked every door and kicked down windows and knocked down barriers for you to get into. So as men and as women, first of all, we need to recognize that we all experience loneliness. And even though it looks different, and even though it's a different battle, it still matters, because when we can attack those things, when we can attack what's up here, listen to one another, that's more soldiers on the field for what God wants to do in this world. That's more soldiers on the field for everything he designed us to do. And so it's a mental game. You're putting in your ear gate, and what are you putting in your eye gate? And those things that you're feeding your mind are the things that are going to come out of you. Okay. You will know them by their fruit. If you lead a successful life, somewhere you sowed some seeds of success. If you lead a life where you are confident in who you are, whether there's 100 people in the room or whether there's just one, you fed yourself seeds of confidence. And that starts with understanding who you are when you are by yourself. So I want to give you 3 tips. 3 tips for learning how to kick the bad habit of loneliness out the window, out the door, and saying you have to go. And 3 tips for saying this is how I can master the art of being alone. Okay. So I want to jump into the first one. And the first one is that being alone at first is going to hurt, but then comes the healing. Right? I'm going to say that again. Being alone at first is going to hurt, but then comes the healing. And I want to share a real personal story with you about that, because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you know, when you are young, and again, when I was in middle school, all I wanted to do was just be able on Friday night and Saturday night just to go out, hang out with my friends, especially in middle school and high school. Everybody was going to each other's houses. They were having parties. Football Friday night would happen, and they would say, you're coming over to my house, and you're coming over to my house, and we're going to have a sleepover, and, you know, I want you to come over, and we're going to watch movies. And then on Saturday, everybody's mom would get them up, and everybody would go. I grew up in Hickory, Valley Hills Mall, and you're going to meet me at the Valley Hills Mall, and we're going to go to the food court, and then we're going to go shopping and everything. And all I wanted my mom and dad to do was just drive me over to Susie's house. My best friend, Carolyn, can you please take me to Carolyn's house? I just want to be with the people. I just want to be with my friends. And my parents would always say, Mary, you all week have been ripping and running. You've been in school. You've done your student government. You've done all these different things. You take piano lessons. You take dance lessons. The weekends are for peace and quiet. And when I tell you, I bucked my parents. Every weekend, I would say to myself, this is the weekend that my parents are going to get with it and let me hang out with my friends. And every weekend, they would say, the weekends are for going to church. That's the first thing. The weekends are for making sure that you're resetting yourself spiritually. But the second thing, peace and quiet. Peace and quiet. And I couldn't understand this concept of peace and quiet. I don't want peace and quiet. I want loud. I want music. I want rowdy. I want to go to the mall. I want to go to the party. All of this. Let me tell you something. What happened? I literally, like clockwork, I think I was born at 2:53 in the morning. At 2:53 a.m. on the morning of my 30th birthday, something happened to my life. I realized that the most beautiful thing in the world is to come home on Friday night and have nothing to do. Am I the only person who experiences this? It's just, there's an overwhelming joy that comes from the peace of being in your home on a Friday night and having nothing to do, but maybe you just curl up on the couch and watch a good movie or read a good book and just be in the peace and quiet after the hustle and the bustle of the whole entire week. Okay. The peace and the quiet is a resetting mechanism. The peace and the quiet is a place where you can get with yourself in your mind. And the peace and the quiet is a place where God can talk to you. And I'm telling you, through my teens, my late teens in college and my 20s and into my 30s, I started to understand the power of this peace and this quiet. And let me tell you something, it's not popular. It's not popular when you're single, because even though you're praying for a mate, you know, and you're thinking, Lord, just let him come and knock on my door. I just need him to come and deliver my mail and just be my husband. You're thinking to yourself, how am I going to do this and meet my soulmate? And how am I going to make friends? And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? And how am I going to make sure, you know, but the peace and the quiet, even though at first it hurt, even though going through that process of saying, I need to be the best caretaker of my time, and I don't always need to be around people, and I always don't need to go to that party, and I always don't need to go to that football Friday night. That peace and that quiet helped me reset myself so that I could be the best when I did go out there in the world. And I'm telling you something, it healed me, because when we talk about the power of forgiveness, when we talk about all the things that people do and say, and they hurt you and they frustrate you and you get verbally abused and Unfortunately, some people are in physically abusive relationships. If you don't have that peace and that quiet of that being alone, you don't have time to heal. In those quiet places are the times when you get to know yourself the best. And so you have to schedule that time. You have to be intentional with that time. You have to put that time for you, that alone time on your calendar, and say, hey, if it's just for 30 minutes, maybe the first month you're starting out with 30 minutes, and then the next month you go to an hour, and then 2 hours. And I'm talking about put your phone on do not disturb, turn off the social media, and have time with you, because you will discover so much about yourself. You will have thoughts and you will have memories, and you'll say, that's why that happened. That's why I met her. That's why I needed him. That's why I went through that. Revelation can't come if you're not in your peace and in your quiet. Revelation can't come if you are in the noise. So yes, it hurts. It hurts to say, no, I can't come to your soiree. No, I can't come to your bat mitzvah. No, I can't come to your quinceañera. No, I can't. I have to preserve that time for me, because I don't need to be everywhere. I've got to preserve my peace and quiet. So the first step to being alone is knowing that it will hurt at first, but the healing is going to come. Okay. Now, the second step, and this one's very important. Being alone helps you learn who you are and who you are not. Okay. Being alone helps you understand who you are and who you are not. All right. We have to give a little bit of ourselves to every single person that we meet. We have to give a little bit of ourselves to every single situation. Okay. Dante has an amazing family, but he has a beautiful wife. He's got amazing sons, and those relationships are different. He has to give a little piece of that to his wife. He has to give a little piece of that to his sons, but he's also a principal. So he's got hundreds of kids, and he's got to give pieces of them because every child deserves something. But being alone, being in that solitude, has helped Dante understand who he is as a man walking on this earth, fulfilling God's purpose, so that when he gets in front of his kids at school, he won't sacrifice who he is for what he does. When he and his wife are creating these strategies to make sure that their family is safe, he will not forget who he is because of what he does. All right. Ryan, he has friends, he has families, he works in schools, he gives a little piece of himself to this, he gives a little piece of himself to that. If he doesn't know who he is when he's alone, he will sacrifice himself when it comes time to make some decisions. Fran, all of us, we got Bernessa on the line, we got Yasmin on the line. We all give a little piece of ourselves to something. But being alone helps you understand, hey, you know what? I'm just not a pasta person. I tried it. I did a date night with myself. I did a little pasta dish. I don't like it. So now when I get out in the world, I'm at that dinner. I'm on a dinner date. I'm at the business dinner, and they say, do you want pasta? No, I do not want pasta. And you can say it confidently. You don't have to say, well, because you're getting pasta, I'm going to get pasta because I think you're cute. But I don't like pasta, and it's okay. There's a confidence in knowing what it is that you don't like. And I use pasta as an example because it's a small thing. I use pasta as an example because it seems to be an insignificant thing. But if you're not spending time with yourself alone to get to know who you are, and you sacrifice pasta, then you'll sacrifice your self-dignity. You'll sacrifice your values. You'll lay your morals down. You'll lay your tendencies down, and then you will look in the mirror one day and you will not recognize the person who is standing there looking back at you. Every single limitless lady that is watching this video, and every single limitless gentleman that is watching this video, you deserve to know who it is you are, so that you can stand up for her and so that you can stand up for him. And being alone helps you explore who it is you are. Being alone helps you explore your likes and dislikes. Being alone helps you ask yourself those questions and give yourself the luxury of time to be able to find the answers. because there's not someone standing in your face saying, do you like this? Do you want this? Do you want to go here? Do you want to go there? Do you want to, you cannot think that way. You cannot ebb and flow that way. And there's a scripture that I want to share. When you start talking about making sure that you're being alone, I want to share Isaiah 30:15. It says, in repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength. In quietness and trust is your strength. Not in loudness, not in a boisterous environment. In quietness and trust is your strength. When you come home at the end of the day, you have to plug back up to something. You have to plug back up and say, this is the time for me to refuel. That's my time to be alone. If it's on a Saturday morning, you just get an hour to read, to draw, to do whatever it is you do. You've got to do that for you. Okay, so we got two things so far. Being alone at first is going to hurt, but then it's going to heal. And then the second thing is being alone helps you learn who you are and who you are not. And the last step, the last tip for being alone is so important. Being alone helps you learn God's voice. Okay? Being alone helps you learn God's voice. Now, this is huge, because when I read my Bible, no one, not Abraham, not Moses, not Elijah, not John, not Paul, not any of them, not Ruth, none of them. None of those people got their revelation at a party. They didn't get their revelation at a rave. They didn't get their revelation at the club. They didn't get their revelation at a business meeting. They got their revelation when they were alone. And the Bible does not say they got their revelation when they were lonely. They got their revelation when they were alone. Okay? God came to Abraham and said, you are going to be the father of many nations. And Abraham was alone. And then he came to Moses and he said, this is what you're going to do for the kingdom. And he said, but God, I have a stutter. He said, I didn't ask you all that. I said, this is what you're going to do for the kingdom. Okay? And then he told Ruth, this is what you need to do to go find your Boaz. And she wasn't around all of her girls, okay? So this wasn't a Real Housewives of the Bible situation. Ruth received that revelation alone. Every person in the Bible who did something great received their revelation when they were taking time to commune with God. When they were in their trust, they found their strength, they found their blessing, and they found their revelation. And that's exactly what's going to happen when you master being alone. Because you're going to learn God's voice. And when I tell you, he's going to tell you so many amazing things about the world, about people you're involved with, about your job, about your next step. He's going to give you that great idea that's going to change the world. He's going to say, listen, I know you thought that when you were 3 and this happened, but it really wasn't that. And you're going to heal from that. And you have to learn God's voice. Because the last thing the enemy wants is for you to know the difference between Satan's voice and God's voice. Because let me tell you what happens when you start growing up and you start mastering this being alone. The devil sees that you are learning to master the art of being exactly who God created you to be, and he gets scared. And so then what he does, limitless ladies, is he sends this 6'6" tall drink of water, dark chocolate number named Rico Suave, right? He's saying all the right things. He's doing all the right things. He has a great job, a car, 6 figures in the bank, this and that, da, 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 da. And if you do not know God's voice, you will fall for what you think is your blessing, but it's really a Carolina River cricket. It's false. Or more importantly, you could be somewhere having a great time, and God is trying to tell you, get out of here. It's not safe. Get out of here. You don't need to be here right now. Get out of here. I need you to get in your car and get home. And that could save your life. But if you are listening to voices that you think are God's, voices that are distracting you, you don't understand God's word, 5 seconds in the car on your way home and the accident was 10 seconds behind you, but you listened to God's voice. He told you to get out of there, told you to get home, get in your car and go get out of that party and get to your house. And you listen and you save your life. Being alone is mastering the art of your destiny. Being alone is really taking the power back and saying, this life was meant to be lived on purpose. And with God at the center of it, and me knowing what he sounds like, me knowing the difference between the world and God, I'm going to walk straight into my destiny, and no devil in hell is going to stop me, and no devil in hell is going to distract me. So those are the 3 tips, okay? Being lonely versus being alone, knowing that the loneliness is right here. It's a mindset. We got to break it. And once we break it and take that first step to learning to master the art of being alone, know that first, it's going to hurt at first, but you're going to heal from it. You're going to start to see your soul and your spirit and your confidence coming back. You're going to start to experience success. The second thing is being alone helps you know who you are and what you are not. Because when you know that, that's when you start to understand the inner workings of yourself. Because God didn't create junk. God actually created us in his image. So any thought, any lonely, depressing, negative mental state thought that comes into our mind that says otherwise, that can go back to the pit of hell where it came from. That is not of God. That's that mental battle I was talking about. Know who you are and know who you are not. And the last thing is being alone helps you hear God's voice and know God's voice and know the difference between God's voice and something that is fake, faulty, and not for you. All right. I hope that this helped you. Please let me know. Give me some comments in the comment section. You guys are wonderful. I want to thank you all for joining. This is powerful. The process of soul healing is so important. So important. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you so much, Pastor Ely. Thank you, Ryan. Oh my goodness, all my Facebook and Instagram friends, thank you so much. Listen, this is what I want you to do. Please, please, please. Share this video, share this journey. Okay. If you have not watched part 1, please go back and watch part 1, the power of forgiveness. Share this video, part 2, being lonely versus being alone. And you are in for a treat because part 3 is going to be in 2 weeks on the 31st, Thursday, January 31st at 8:00, same time. Part 3, we're going to be jumping into the uncluttering process. Okay, the uncluttering process. And y'all, we're going in. I'm not just talking about your closets and your cabinets. I'm talking about let's unclutter our spirits. Let's unclutter our minds. Let's unclutter those spaces that have been cluttered with junk for too long. Okay, we talk about spring cleaning, but you can do it anytime. And we're going to do it on January 31st, Thursday, 8:00. I want you to come back and join us. You all are wonderful. I love my Limitless family. Continue to follow, share this journey, comment, let me know how it's going. I want to hear how your journey through soul healing is going and working for you and how you're making 2019 the best year ever. Have a great rest of the week. I love you all. Thank you for joining me. Let me know how it's going. Leave some comments below, and we'll see you on Thursday, January 31st at 8:00 for part 3. Good night, everybody. Mwah. Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you, Karen. Oh, hi, Mom. Thank you, Yasmin. I appreciate you so much. Thank you, Kathy. I love you all. I love you all so much. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the week. Bye-bye.